Good evening, everybody. Before we begin the meeting, I will ask everyone to please silence cell phones and other electronic devices and remind council that our procedure bylaw prescribes the use of technology during council meetings. It's 6:31 p.m. I'll call this council meeting to order. And as always, we acknowledge that we are meeting today on the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe, now of Alderville, who have lived on and cared for this land for generations. We recognize their enduring connection to the land, the water, and the community, and we pay respect to their elders, both past and present. As we come together to make important decisions for our council and our community, let us be mindful of our responsibility to uphold the values of justice, respect, and inclusivity for all the people who call this traditional territory home. I have a motion moved by Councillor Botwell, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that Council approve the December 15th, 2025 Council agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. We'll note that I have heard from Councillor McCausland. She is going to endeavor to come in virtually for this evening's meeting. Members of Council, have you any declarations of pecuniary interest? There are none noted. Are there any announcements this evening? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I was hoping that Director of Public Works would be here, but he's not, to thank all of our municipal staff for all of the hard work last week. It seemed like it was 24/7 on the roads to keep streets and sidewalks clear. So a big thank you to them. I have a few, so can I just keep going?
Just carry.
Okay. I believe you were there on Friday or Saturday as well, to the Brighton Arts and Culture Council, where they celebrated their first anniversary. It was good to see that. Glad to see that staying on our main street. Last Saturday, the 13th, Santa was in Codrington. We had a great time there with the kids, and he's coming to Brighton this week, Saturday. So if you haven't had time to stop in and bring your list to Santa, come and see him in the park on Saturday. And I stopped in earlier this afternoon to the Evangel Pentecostal Church, where today the Lions started, and many charity organizations this week are putting together the Christmas hampers. And what I find humbling is that they are filling hampers for 120 families. So busy time for them, but kudos to all who are involved with that.
Thank you for that. Any other announcements? Go ahead, Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. We hosted the Brighton Homelessness Task Force hosted a training session at Trinity St. Andrew's United Church this past week. 52 people were there, including Mayor Ostrander and myself, some of our library staff, people from local churches and volunteer groups and nonprofits, someone from health team came down from Campbellford. We had people there from Port Hope and Coburg as well, and Alnwick-Haldimand. Councillor from Alnwick-Haldimand came out. So lots of interest across Northumberland in learning more about social services systems. It was an excellent time. A lot of people learned a lot. The Q&A went for a long time. We had to have a coffee break, and then we had more Q&A. It was a good time. I think a lot of people learned a lot. So thank you for being there, Mayor. They're hoping to turn this into a traveling road show, and so hopefully they'll be back this way in future years, but also moving around the county.
And I'm sure if there's another one in another community, we'd be more than welcome to attend, just like others were at ours. Any other announcements this evening? Thank you both for that. Move to the adoption of the minutes with a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that Council adopt the following minutes as presented. Council December 1st, 2025, Council Planning December 8th, 2025. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. We have no statutory public meeting this evening. We have no delegations or presentations listed. Madam Clerk, are you aware of any citizens' comments? None. That brings us straight to staff reports. Our first report is with regard to the 2025 tax write-off report. And Treasurer Creamer, this is Tax Collector Donaldson's report. Is there anything to add or highlight? You only get that for so long.
Through your worship, nothing to add.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wright. The council approve the 2025 tax write-off report and authorize staff to adjust the tax accounts as identified in this report. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon?
Thank you, Mayor. This is just a good annual reminder because we so often hear from people that if taxes go up, that people won't be able to afford to live, that we do in fact write off taxes for people who are not able to pay them.
Sort of. Treasurer, do you want to make comment for me there, please?
Yeah, through your worship, there is the possibility for people to apply through a Section 357 due to financial hardship. There are no examples or no cases of that in this year. It would be an exhaustive process. You would have to provide extensive proof of that financial hardship. Really what's included in this report are changes due to demolition, fire, change in property tax classes, and more kind of issues around that, just around the assessment and what's happening to the roll and the property that's impacting the taxes in that way.
Thank you for that bit of clarification. But just to be clear, if there is financial hardship and you're having difficulty making tax payments, there is a mechanism by which you can have those taxes put off onto the value of the property for at some point, to be paid at some point. And they should contact the finance department for that. Thank you for that. Anything further on the motion? Go ahead, Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. The top of the list, there's several now owned by the municipality. Are these owned by the municipality by default, or are these properties that we have since purchased or like part of our land banking program?
I suspect it's the latter. Mr. Creamer?
Through your worship, I'd have to get back to you on those details.
Anything further on the motion? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next report is the hops barn facility use. Manager Hallam, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Sorry, I'm not new here. Through you, your worship, I have nothing to add.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Betwell, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon. The council endorsed the Parks and Recreation Department to facilitate the booking of the hops barn use for all user groups, including the Codrington Community Association, in accordance with the municipality's terms and conditions. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a question. The second term on the use terms and conditions agreement is about insurance. And it mentions that users would need $5 million of insurance, with the municipality of Brighton listed as an additional insured, and that it's possible to purchase that through the municipality. I'm curious as to how much it costs to get $5 million worth of insurance for an event.
Manager Hallam.
Through you, your worship, to Councillor. The costs are based on depending on how many people in the event, what the event is used for. So it's broken down differently, and there's different levels through the insurance company that they provide to us. And then we charge back to the user if they don't have their own.
Follow up.
Yeah, are we talking thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars or tens of dollars?
Between $10 and $20 for the event.
Okay. That's not so bad. Thank you.
Thank you both. Go ahead, Councillor Betwell.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Manager Hallam. Maybe it might be a fire chief thing. Are there going to be like smoke detectors and all that stuff in the barn itself for safety? Seeing that we have the public congregating in it?
Chief Thompson?
So we did do an inspection with the building department prior to, so they could have occupancy. There is exit signs and emergency lights and fire extinguishers. I'm not sure on the smoke alarms, but we could do that very easily.
Thank you. Anything further on the motion? Those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next report is the Accessibility Community Improvement Plan. Manager Hageman, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, I do not.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Council Wright, seconded by Council Rowley, that Council accept and approve the community improvement applications as submitted by Vilex Drugs Incorporated with an estimated 2025 operating budget funding allocation of $5,000 as recommended by the Accessibility Committee. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next report is the Environmental Registry Ontario notice for Bill 68. Director Walsh, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Nothing further to add, Mayor, just to characterize the recommendations. It's really to acknowledge the good service that the staff at Lower Trent have provided over the years, and the hope that that level of service will not diminish with the changes going forward.
Thank you for that. I have a motion moved by Councilor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that Council receive the staff report dated December 15, 2025, regarding Environmental Registry of Ontario posted notice for Bill 68, and that the Mayor and CAO be authorized to submit comments on behalf of the municipality to the Environmental Registry Office generally as described in this report. Is there any discussion? Councilor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder to folks that we have already passed a motion advocating against Bill 68 in general. And at our last Lower Trent meeting, we had on the agenda a long list of other organizations that have done likewise, or that have big concerns about the way that this is being rolled out. The meeting that I attended in Vaughan a few weeks back was with the minister and the leader of the new corporation that will oversee conservation authorities in Ontario. And it was an opportunity for good input insofar as it was asking us to envision what the future of conservation authorities could look like. And that's the kind of thing that I would do before I pass the legislation that makes it happen rather than after. And so it felt to a lot of people like, okay, you've committed us to this path and now you want us to figure out how to get there. And so this ERO posting is very welcome. I appreciate it. They are indeed looking for input into how to do this because it seems like they don't actually have a plan. So our input through the ERO has a chance of making a difference. And so I appreciate that.
Thank you for that. Any other comment? Councilor Wright?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think just some comments. I think the most concerning thing to me, and there's several things I'm concerned about, and that was expressed through the motion that we did pass here in this chamber. One of the bigger things that concerns me are the conservation lands, of which we have Proctor Park in our community. All of the conservation lands were listed, and our conservation authority was required to let the province know if any of those properties were developable. Our conservation lands were listed as non-developable, but we know that that doesn't necessarily mean anything in the grand scheme of things. My fear is that this is just a lot of smoke and mirrors to eventually at some point download those properties into the province's pockets, and that we could lose not only Proctor Park, but other conservation lands that we have long enjoyed in this area and other conservation lands in other and other areas. It's very concerning. They say that things will remain the same, but by and large, we have zero idea how things are going to function. They are saying that there's going to be efficiencies, but they seem to have zero idea as to how all that will be managed. So it's very interesting to me that this legislation is passed. There's no path. They're asking for input, but it's in a very controlled manner. I think it's just something that we need to really keep a close eye on.
Thank you for that. Any other comments from members of council? Your comments, Councillor Wright, are poignant. Of course, we have Goodrich Loomis in the community as well. It's outside the built boundary, though. Proctor Park is within the built boundary, so it's a bit concerning. About 20 years ago, when I was new in this chamber as well, at that time, I asked the question, why is Proctor Park, why haven't we considered purchasing for a buck Proctor Park as a municipal government? And the answer I got from the then Lower Trent rep was, well, we wouldn't want to trust the future council to hold on to that property, but we can trust the Conservation Authority to do it. And so I leave that out there.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. That brings us to the repeal of outdated policies. Deputy Clerk, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Wright, that Council repeal entirely the Employee Assistance Program policy and the Parking Ticket Review policy. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to appreciate the Deputy Clerk for all the work that she's been putting in for the last 2 years on this project. I've been in a position before to have to go through old policies and figure out how to update them or get rid of them. And it can be really dry and soul-sucking work. And so I just want to publicly celebrate you for your good work. And this one's got to feel real satisfying. Good job.
Thank you for that. Any further discussion? Those in favor? And being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next report is the Grants in Aid Submissions Summary. CAO Arthurs, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, Mr. Mayor, nothing at this time.
Thank you. I'm actually going to not read this motion quite yet because I think there are some decisions we need to make as a council, and we should make those decisions, and we can add an additional resolution to this existing motion. So, council, I would think that the best way to do this is simply go line by line through these. My understanding from our discussion is that we are essentially taking cemeteries off the table. We know that they will be removed from this portion of the budget in the next budgetary round. But for now, we have to live with them in this based on our existing policy. So Ailsa, Kawarthas, Peterborough, Northumberland. And I'm simply going to say yes or no, and based on that discussion, we'll decide whether it's full amount or lesser amount. So I'm just going to go around the table and it'd be yes or no, and if you have a comment, you can make it. Councillor Wheeldon.
Yes, and I do have a comment. I appreciate the located in Brighton column, but I reviewed the criteria, and there is a criteria that says needs to be located in Brighton, but the following criteria says or serves Brighton residents. And so whether or not it's centrally located here, if it's serving Brighton residents, it could. In this case, this is an organization that would serve Brighton residents if it had the capacity to, and we would be providing that capacity. It further, this organization would be leveraging outside dollars to support agriculture and farmers in Northumberland or in Brighton to basically use their properties for environmental benefit. typically when somebody asks a farmer to not farm part of their field for the sake of the environment, the farmer is just giving up their own income for that. And Alice's whole thing is that they provide support for farmers to do those things. So I think this would align with our sustainability plan when it comes out. We have some language in there about supporting innovative agricultural practices to support the environment. I think that this could really benefit from could be a benefit to economic development in terms of bringing additional resources for local farmers. But that said, I have a yes, but I'm open to talking about reducing the amount.
Thank you for that. Councillor Botwell. On ALIS.
Yes. Because it helps to support our rural community if established. And I feel that our rural community doesn't get the attention that they deserve as much as we think we do support as much. I will, however, say that with the caveat, only because they have not had the opportunity to service the Brighton area. And so it's a new opportunity.
Thank you for that. Councillor Wright.
Yes.
Councillor Rowley.
I'm going to say no at this stage. The same thing, I know we talk about, I would say, knowing many farmers, I think most of them are fairly responsible as far as the environment goes. Most of them are very conscientious of sustainability. So at this stage, I think for $20,000, we have a lot. It's a lot of money for something that I'm not 100% familiar with, and I'm going to stick with my no.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Mayor, I'll say no. Yeah.
Thank you. And I would say yes on the caveat that it's not the full amount. So if we can have that discussion, I'd appreciate it. I'm curious what they can do, understanding that the more we give them, maybe the more they can do, but I'm not prepared to go full freight this year. There may be other opportunities here, but I'd be curious to see what they can do in the community, provided that whatever we give them, it's a benefit back to Brighton, right? That has to be the other caveat, which I think in their presentation, certainly it suggested that. So we have 4 yeses to this, and I'm curious what the number should look like. So I'll go to the yeses because the no's are clearly 0. Councillor Wright, I'll start with you though. We'll come around the other way.
I would be happy to see 10 to 12.
Okay. Councillor Botwell.
I tend to be in that a similar range, 10 to 12,500. But just because I got to be different.
You got to creep it up a little, don't you? Go ahead, Councillor Wheeldon.
I wonder if this is another one of those things that is less of a grant and more of an economic development thing. I had a very preliminary conversation with Manager Hagerman before this meeting and said, is this the kind of thing that could come out of ECDEV? And he said, maybe we'd have to look into how we could do that. And so I want to suggest if we start with 10 and see if we can come at the other from a different direction for the rest.
I think the way to do that would be to get these folks in front of the Economic Development Committee and have that conversation with them. Go ahead, CAO.
My apologies, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just in looking on the electronic version, what you have in front of you actually is the December 1st report. I had a full report prepared for tonight that has summaries of each of them that has not been captured. Probably on my end, exporting it incorrectly because Candace tells me it's exported. It's just not showing up there. So it's probably something I haven't clicked that has managed to make it to the agenda for your review. I don't know that there's any immediate urgency if you want to postpone it to January. Alternatively, we could print the report quickly. You could have the summaries in front of you. We did go through and identify, to your point, there is the exception for those that do service Brighton residents. So we tried to go through and do a little bit more fulsome review on each of them and provide some guidance as far as which ones were truly fully eligible and which ones had those caveats for discussion. So I think it would be helpful if you had the information in front of you. If you're comfortable with it, we can wait until January, or we could provide it if you wanted to review it tonight.
I think I'd rather have the fulsome information. Go ahead, Councillor Butwell.
I believe you emailed me that same one, and there was a column that was collapsed. And in opening it, there were comments in there. I think that's what you're talking about.
Through you,
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Butwell. No, it was a full report with paragraphs on each of them. So I did email you the one from the December 1st meeting,
Right.
which just indicated location. And then following that meeting, we went back and did summaries on each of them, and have identified those that are entirely eligible, partially eligible. I think it would be worthwhile for council to see that before making a
Yeah,
decision.
because I think there were some comments about salaries. Some of them, and salaries is not something that is eligible.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes, and in some of them, there are applications that partially have salaries. So again, all of that is identified in those paragraphs.
Now, because we have this deadline of the budget being approved 30 days, can we wait until January?
Yes, the allocated amount for the grants and aid is included in the budget. We just deciding who to slot into those numbers.
That's what I had
Yeah.
thought, but I had also thought that, or I believe that we had there was a comment around the table
Yeah.
at the last meeting saying we needed to decide tonight.
No, I think it's just a preference that we get it done, but
Okay.
it's not the $203,000 plus dollars has been included in our budget. So there's no danger of not having a grants and aid for 2026. It's included. Go ahead, CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, entirely that 203 is allocated. And if council, for whatever reason, did want to approve all of them at 100% and you went beyond that to that 234, I think we could do a motion at that point to pull it from reserves or whatever council's wishes were. So there's no concern in passing the budget. But I do think it would be better for you to have it.
Councillor Wright.
I had basically figured we'd be here for a decent length of time, given that this was on the table. So I'm happy to wait for it to be printed. We could move on to.
No, we would need to make it available to the public in advance of the meeting.
Sure.
So I think it's best if we're going to go down that road, if we're not prepared to do the chug away tonight verbally, which we could do, then I think it's best to wait. And I think the public deserves to see the report too. Yeah. So I haven't read the motion, but what it reads is that council received the grants and aid, et cetera, et cetera. The mover is listed as Councillor Wheeldon, the seconder is Councillor Butwell. Are you both comfortable if instead of receive, we say defer the grants and aid submission report to the first meeting in January? Is that fair? Moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Butwell, that council defer the grants and aid submission summary report to the first regular council meeting in January. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to the CAO ongoing report and capital projects update. CAO, we've read the report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just one quick thing. At the last meeting on December the 8th, the planning, actually, no, was it December 1st? We chatted about the banners on the poles downtown, and we had hoped to bring something back for this meeting. In investigation, there's just a lot of information we want to ensure we have accurate for council, so we will bring it back in January. So we'll have that added to this list, but it's not here because we had hoped to have it this evening.
Thank you for that. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council receive the CAO ongoing report and capital projects update. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. There are no notices of motions or motions. There's no unfinished business. There's no bylaws listed. That brings us to reports, minutes of advisory committees of council and review teams. The first is the Homelessness Task Force. Is moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council receive the following committee meeting minutes as presented. Homelessness Task Force, October 29th, 2025. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon, do you have anything to highlight on this?
Not on this one, but the next one I do.
Very well. All in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. The next is a recommendation from the Homelessness Task Force's December 9th meeting. It's moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council receive or support the recommendation from the Homelessness Task Force. Councillor Butwell, can I assume and suggest that we're supporting this?
Yes, you may.
Councillor Wheeldon as the seconder.
Most certainly. Thank you.
Roll call. Is there any discussion, Councillor Wheeldon?
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, I'd like to just give a quick rundown of what the report contains. I know it's a little long. But to begin with, I do want to just read out the names of the members because I appreciate their volunteering and they did excellent work. The members were Bets Lobin. Forgive me if I mispronounce people's names, everyone. Bill Smith, Hannah McCausland, Jeff Wheeldon, Heather Ratz, Laurie Cowett, Brian Ostrander, Mike O'Neill, Rob Cleve, and Wayne Jefferson. I think there's one I'm missing here. Kyle Cooperis, thank you. Really appreciate all of their efforts in showing up and providing feedback and really shaping this report. Towards the end of this report are the things, specifically a summary of the things that we recommend for the municipality, and I'd like to read them out if that's all right. They're on pages 16 to 17 of the report. The recommendations from the Brighton Homelessness Task Force are as follows. We recommend a motion from council recognizing unhoused residents as right holders and committing to governing with respect for the rights of all residents without discrimination. This is a recommendation that comes from the Ontario Human Rights Code or Human Rights Commission and other research into rights and municipal governance. Increasingly, there's just a call for municipalities to recognize that these people do in fact have rights. So that's an easy ask. A motion from council advocating for federal and provincial funding at the levels needed to achieve the end of homelessness. Earlier in this report, I point out that AMO asked for $13 billion over 10 years to end homelessness, and the province responded with $20 million for shelters, $50 million for housing, and $378 million for heart hubs. AMO figures that accounts for 6% of the need. Similarly, the Parliamentary Budget Office suggested that if the federal government wanted to have homelessness, they would need to increase funding by $3.5 billion per year, and they responded with $500 million. So whatever approach municipalities take in addressing homelessness, it needs to be funded if it's going to be successful. A motion from council advocating for a revised community safety and well-being plan at the county level that specifically leaves room for lower tier implementation plans. This is similar to our advocacy with the county to make sure that their sustainability plan has room for a lower tier sustainability plan that can move in lockstep with them and share some common tasks or goals. The community safety and well-being plan is being revived right now. I know that committee has started meeting again, which is encouraging. And it is core to the approach that this report advocates for, which is about empowering people in the community to look after each other rather than having more centralized government services. A lower tier implementation plan for the revised community safety and well-being plan that engages the residents of Brighton, local business community, nonprofits, faith institutions, and volunteer groups to take collective responsibility for one another in a distributed and decentralized way according to the principles of asset-based community development. This was the ask that I asked to have budgeted and that the task force asked to have budgeted. And we've set aside $50,000 from hopeful grant funding, though not from the levy. Provision of space, both physical and virtual, for the coordination of services among nonprofits, faith institutions, and volunteer groups whose collective efforts reinforce the social fabric of our community. Basically, we recognize that these groups do great work, but often don't know what each other is up to, and that it's important that we provide some opportunity for them to coordinate so that they can more effectively take care of our residents. Provision of training opportunities for members of the public, particularly from the voluntary sector, to enhance their capacity and effectiveness in serving their neighbors and to equip landlords and tenants to proactively address housing insecurity and reduce evictions. This kind of training started this past week with our training session from Northumberland County. But Councillor Butwell and I have spoken many times about how having training for tenants so that they know their rights and having training for landlords so that they know their responsibilities would be really beneficial, because we see that side of it all the time in real estate. Provision of staff time to help convene and facilitate that community-based collaboration, and ideally to seek funding sources for a staff position to facilitate the community safety and well-being plan local implementation plan. Again, as with the sustainability plan, if we have a plan, we need someone to actually implement it. And so whether we can find staff time among our existing staff or to seek funding for a position, I think it would be worthwhile to empower those groups. Ongoing commitment to the grants and aid budget with special attention to programs and services that fill gaps in government services, which we're already doing. Ongoing commitment to the land banking initiative, the recommendations of the Housing Solutions Report, and other initiatives to increase the supply of affordable housing in Brighton, which again, we are already doing. A commitment from Council to support staff through providing adequate training and resources, and through political support for staff making judgment calls regarding bylaw and code enforcement matters, so that no staff member is afraid to engage with and support residents who are precariously housed and for whom bylaw enforcement might result in eviction and homelessness. Sometimes, if our staff are not well supported, they will default to the hardest possible enforcement of a rule in order to protect themselves in a situation when they might also be able to protect our residents. And so trying to make sure that we support them adequately so that they can make a judgment call and know that we have their back. A revised parks bylaw that distinguishes between recreational camping and unhoused residents sheltering in peace. This came from a conversation with bylaw where they described that in some jurisdictions, the no camping in parks rules are being leveraged against people who are camping to survive rather than camping recreationally. And that's not what those bylaws were written for, but it is how they're being enforced. And so wanting to ensure that we make that fine distinction so that it's clear that there is a distinction. A review of existing public open spaces to identify locations that might be good candidates for designating as places to shelter in peace. This comes from the Waterloo decision and Kingston decision that we've talked about a few times at this table, wherein it has been ruled that a municipality cannot evict someone from a public park unless there is an adequate shelter space available for them. And defining what is adequate is relevant to that. And so basically people only live in parks when it's a last resort, and we are better served to direct them to a place where they might have some privacy than we are to try and run them out of town. And so knowing where we might direct someone to is wise, and we've had that conversation. Attention to the needs of unhoused residents as the municipality expands our portfolio of public open spaces. I know that we are looking for more public open spaces according to our Parks and Rec Master Plan, and recognizing that there are going to be places where people are going to seek to shelter themselves probably in the future, and being proactive in considering those needs. Not that we want to buy park space for the sake of people who are going to sleep there, but recognizing that the places that we do find are likely to have someone need to sleep there. A commitment to ensuring that public washrooms remain open as much as possible, to ensure that unhoused residents have access to the dignity and privacy for their bodily functions, that all residents have the convenience of access to washrooms downtown, and that downtown businesses do not become public washrooms by proxy. Sometimes people misuse public bathrooms and we end up having to close them temporarily in order to clean them or deal with vandalism or repairs. But I've seen other jurisdictions that have chosen to just close them down indefinitely or for many months at a time, and that just shifts the burden to businesses, frankly. Continued partnership with transit operators to ensure that all residents have access to safe and affordable transportation. And I've been talking with Quinte Transit about how we might provide some bus passes for people in need. Ongoing proactive collaboration between bylaw enforcement, county social services, OPP, Northumberland County Community Paramedicine, and Lower Trent Conservation staff as unhoused residents move around the municipality. Basically, we know that these people can, that our staff can be talking to these other groups and wanting to make sure that we have an intentional open line of communication about such things so that we're prepared to act and coordinate as needed, which I'm sure we already do, but again, putting it down in writing. And finally, a commitment to print and periodically update the list of support services and nonprofits for distribution in the community so that when a Brighton resident needs support, we know who to call. Are there any concerns or objections to those recommendations?
Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. Certainly no objections, Councillor Wheeldon. However, we are talking budget money, and I don't know how far you expect this project to go in 2026. Regardless of the 50,000 that we could maybe find in some kind of grant program, there are a lot of points on here that are going to cost a lot of money, and staff time alone is not cheap. Keeping public bathrooms open is not cheap. Looking after parks where people might have to stay is not cheap. So I don't know where any of those excess dollars are going to come from.
I can confidently say this year it's just the $50,000 that we earmarked through grant opportunities, but we'll need to watch that carefully as the years go on. Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. You're right that staff time is not cheap, and keeping a commitment to keeping bathrooms open might burn through more budget than otherwise. But all the things on here are just asking us to commit to upholding the standard of service that we already provide, and basically to not give up if it starts to get a little bit tougher. We're not asking for any new spending in this, only aside from that 50,000. There's if for some reason there was a huge spate of vandalism in the community and we burned through the repairs budget faster than usual, these recommendations ask that we find a way to keep the bathroom open anyway. But aside from that, we're not asking for anything new aside from the implementation plan, which is again that grant funded thing, and then the request that we seek funding. This was actually the mayor's suggestion that we change it from provide to seek funding to provide. So if there's additional staff time needed to continue to coordinate such things, we are going to seek funding for that. But otherwise, all of the things that I've asked for are basically, as we are doing the things that we normally do, let's just make sure that we also consider that unhoused people use these resources too, and that we're not going to withhold these services from them.
And just a reminder that we've already offered a soft commitment to the downtown businesses to keep the bathrooms open because they don't have the facilities, accessible facilities in their store locations. If any of us have been in the back of most of the downtown businesses, we know that it's storage and it's a place where they get ready to bring product out, and even the staff have to crawl over things to use the facilities. So it's not a good place to bring anybody. So that's why we made the commitment to try to keep those bathrooms on the stage open throughout all year long if we can. And the year we weren't able to do that because of some concerning behaviors that were going on, we brought in porta potties. So, we're already fulfilling some of these commitments, not based on homelessness task force concerns, but based on downtown business concerns. So all of these things go hand in glove, and that's why I have no issue supporting them. I mean, it's all about building community and being better in community. So, but go ahead, Councillor Rowley. So, any other comment? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. That moves to reports and minutes of statutory committees, boards, and external agencies. The first is the Intermunicipal Task Force on Housing and Homelessness. It's moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Wright. The council received the Intermunicipal Task Force on Housing and Homelessness November 20th, 2025 meeting notes as presented. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to say thank you to the volunteers at the Intermunicipal Task Force, being a task force that is not connected officially under any council in Northumberland. We are all there on our own steam, and appreciate the work that everyone puts in. We will be circulating or shuffling the chair role again for the coming year, and so big thanks to Claire and Todd from Port Hope for carrying it this past year. And it's been an excellent year. This was the year that we had the Housing Solutions Workshop, which produced a report that highlighted some planning considerations that might lead to more homes being built faster, and that have been supported by every Northumberland municipality. Yeah, it's been a big year for the task force. So thank you to all of those folks, and thank you again to all of you for supporting that task force.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next is the Public Health Board. It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. The council received the Lakelands Public Health Board of Health. That's not right. Is it? It is right. Well, that's awkward. Because I said it, but also because it reads awkwardly. The council received the Lakelands Public Health Board of Health meeting summary Thursday, November 20th, 2025 as information. Any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Moving into correspondence, direction items, endorsements, communications, and petitions. The first comes from Mayor Campion, City of Welland. The call to action with regard to justice and protection of Canada's children. It's moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Rowley. That council receive or support the correspondence from the Office of Mayor Frank Campion, City of Welland, regarding a call to action standing together for justice and the protection of Canada's children. Councillor Wright, this is your motion. Are we receiving or supporting?
Supporting, please.
Thank you. Councillor Rowley is the seconder. You're okay with that? Thank you. Discussion on the motion? All in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. That moves us into FYI correspondence. The first item is the OPP annual billing statement. It's moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon. The council received the OPP annual billing statement package, including 2026 estimated costs and 2024 year-end statement. Is there any discussion? Treasurer Creamer, I believe this is exactly what we thought it might be. So that's what we've included in the budget, correct? Thank you. Anything further from members of council? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. The next item is updates from Northumberland County. It's moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wright. The council received for information the updates from Northumberland County December 8th to 19th, 2025. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And from Quinny Saleability, a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Butwell. The council receive the Quinny Saleability Development Training Letter of appreciation and thank you for grant of $1,000 for 2025. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. That brings us to question period. Is there anyone in the gallery that has a question with anything on tonight's agenda? No one on Zoom for that purpose, Madam Deputy Clerk. Our confirmatory bylaw is moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton Council meeting held on December 15th, 2025. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. And a motion moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that the December 15th, 2025 council meeting adjourn at 7:20 PM. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. I wish you all a happy Christmas and a pleasant new year, and I'll see you in 2026, if not before.